ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם שהכל נהיה בדברו. I mentioned already that the night of the Seder, the important thing is to retell once again what happened in Egypt. Because the Torah says you have to tell it to your son. In other words, each generation has to repeat once again. Not only that, in the Haggadah we say, even if you're very intelligent and you know everything about it, you should retell the story again. Because you relive it and you once again place yourself in the time when that happened. So how do you call that in Hebrew? Sipur Yetziat Mitzrayim. Sipur means the narrative or the story. There's another word in Hebrew that is similar to Sipur, and that is Sofer. Sofer is a scribe. For instance, if you want a new Torah, you can't print a Torah. Printed, it's called Chumash. That's something else. But the Torah that you have in the Ark has to be handwritten. By whom? By a Sofer. Sofer is the one that writes the Torah. He's the one that writes the Tefillin also. We sometimes confuse the boxes. These are the Tefillin. No. The Tefillin are the parchments that are inside those boxes. And those have to be written by a Sofer. What is a mezuzah? It's not the case that is hanging at the entrance of your door. It's the parchment that is inside that has to be written by a Sofer. So in Hebrew, Sipur is the story. Sofer is the one that writes. Lispor in Hebrew also means to count. There was an age that was called the age of the Sofrim. What is Sofrim? The scribes, or maybe those that were counting the letters of the Torah. Because mind you, today we have computers, but years ago you didn't have it. So how did you make sure that the text is really the same as the original text when you copy one? One of the things that you did was to start counting how many letters you have. Make sure that you have the same number of letters and many mechanisms to make sure that you're copying right. So you have Sofer is the scribe. Sofrim maybe are the scribes or those that counted all the letters and are the guardians of our tradition to make sure that each document is exactly the same as the previous document before. What do we do nowadays that we have computers, for instance? The Torah is still handwritten by a sofer. But today we do something else. We scan the Torah and we make sure that the number of letters are the same. When tefillin are written, you put it in a scanner to make sure that you didn't make a mistake. But you cannot reproduce it through a scanner. The scanner is just used to count the number of letters to make sure that you have the right thing. But you must still do it by hand. Why do you have to do it by hand? Because it has to be done with intention. It isn't just another copy. There was a person that did it, that was involved. He had all the kavanah, the intention of repeating, of copying the word of God. That's what you need. And you know what Moshe was called? Moshe was called Moshe Rabbeinu. Our teacher Moshe. In the Haggadah he doesn't appear, even though he is the one that took us out of Egypt. Except for one quote and one pasuk. He is mentioned, but otherwise the Torah doesn't say that he took us out of Egypt. You know who took us out of Egypt? God, not an emissary, God himself. But no matter how many times the author of the Haggadah says that, you feel that without Moshe, nothing would have happened. He is the one that went to speak to Pharaoh. He is the one that spoke to the Jewish people. He tried to convince them, and when God was angry with the Jewish people, he defended the Jewish people. Without Moshe, nothing would have happened. So it's Moshe, our teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu. He taught us the Torah. But there's another word for Moshe also. He's called Safra Rabbah. That's in Aramaic. Safra means sofer. He is the great scribe. He wrote the Torah. God dictated to him. He was a sofer. He wrote the Torah. He wrote a sample of the Torah for each one of the tribes of the Jewish people. He gave each one a Torah. Everybody had to have a copy of the Torah. What is this Safra Rabbah? It means he's the greatest of all the scribes. But maybe it means something else. My teacher, Rav Soloveitchik, on one opportunity said, you know what Safra Rabbah means? He not only wrote the Torah on parchment, he also wrote the Torah in the hearts and minds of every Jew. He penetrated your being with his teaching. Not only, as I say, on a piece of paper, parchment, not only that, His teachings penetrated to your interior. So many a time, when we communicate with another person, we write them a little message, we send them a text, we send them a letter. That may be the result of writing, using a pen, using a computer, but you're not really addressing yourself to the soul of the other person. I think that can only be done when you have personal touch, personal contact. So make sure that you speak to your children. Don't treat them as if you're speaking from one computer to another. Don't treat him as if you're writing a letter to him. Try to inscribe something in his heart, because those are the moments that he will really remember. You know what you remember? You remember from your childhood that when you sang the 4 questions, the Manishtana, something happened around the table. You remember certain moments that really left an impression on your heart, on your mind. Moses, Moshe Rabbeinu, certainly left an indelible impression in the hearts and minds of the entire Jewish people.